Motion for debate. The King's Speech. Lord Timpson.
My Lords, it is a privilege to open this debate in my new role as Minister for Prisons, Probation and Public Protection. It will not, however, have escaped your Lordship's attention that apart from the 40-minute session we just did, this is my maiden speech. So I'll say a few words before moving on to the substance of the debate. And I'd like to start with a thank you for the welcome that I've received from your Lordships, but also from Black Rod, the doorkeepers, the catering staff, and the many colleagues who work tirelessly to keep this place running. I am here, I hope, because of my experience, including as CEO of the Timpson Group and having grown the family retail business from 300 shops to over 2,000. I learnt a lot about leadership and responsibility, and let me say at the outset that trust and kindness are vital traits to me as a leader. As CEO, I learnt that if people are happy in their jobs, feel valued, trusted and cared for, they will perform day in, day out. Sometimes life throws challenges at us. If this impacts work, it is the job of a caring company to offer support, not penalise the individual. I've found over the years that when you care for people, they care back. It is an approach I intend to bring to this job in how I support the thousands of frontline prison and probation staff working hard in the system every day to keep the public safe. I also bring experience as a former chair of the Prison Reform Trust. I'm very clear that prisons must be available as a punishment and a deterrent. But currently our prisons are not working. They create better criminals, not better citizens. That makes the public less safe. So we have to make prisons rehabilitative and to make sure that when offenders are given a second chance, they can seize them. That's good for society because it reduces crime. The criminal justice system exists to keep the public safe, but it shouldn't hold the 1 in 4 working-age people in the UK with a criminal record back from getting jobs. That's a huge, largely untapped talent pool. Let's not forget, nearly 80% of offenders are re-offenders. At the same time, ex-offenders are less likely to re-offend if they have a job within a year of release. So helping them to find work both cuts crime and supports our economy to grow. It's a win-win that we cannot ignore. That was one of the drivers behind me setting up the Employment Advisory Board network, which is now operating in 93 prisons. I'm grateful to all those involved, the board networks in England, Wales and Scotland, and every business leader, board chair and prison governor who has played their part. In 2021, when we started, only 14% of prison leavers had a job after 6 months of release. By March 2023, it was over 30%. Most importantly, I want to thank the prison staff across the country who make initiatives like this possible, as well as their colleagues in the probation service who continue the efforts to get people on the straight and narrow when they're released. They work every day with some of the most complex people in our country inside one of its most complex systems. I also want to mention the late Noble Lord, Lord Ramsbotham, who was a Chief Inspector of Prisons before coming to your Lordship's house. He encouraged me to carry on working with offenders when other people were not so convinced. And my noble friend, Lord Carter of Hazelmere, who is, of course, a trustee of Prison Reform Trust. I must also thank my fellow Justice League members, my noble friends and sponsors, former Prisons Minister and Deputy Chair of the Prison Reform Trust, Lord Bradley, and my Ministry of Justice colleague, Lord Ponsonby, for their sage advice and support. And before I finish this maiden element of my speech, I want to thank my family, who supported me in this endeavour and in all things. My wife, Rasheen, my children, Bede, Patrick and Neve. As well as my dad, John, who alongside my late mother, Alex, brought our family up in a madhouse full of foster children, allowing me to see the challenges young people can face and the potential they have when someone gives them a chance in life. My Lords, I will now turn to the substance of this debate and the home affairs and justice elements of the government's agenda. Let me start by putting on record my gratitude to His Majesty for delivering the gracious speech. And let me also say that it has become immediately clear to me on entering your Lordship's house that there is a huge amount of knowledge, experience and wisdom on these important subjects in this place, and I look forward to a wide-ranging debate and thoughtful contributions from noble lords on all sides. Whilst I'm nervous as I stand here for my first speech, I was more nervous about the prison statement, the contents of which I will not repeat again now. I'm telling myself that all noble lords were once in my position, and you're still here, so it can't be that difficult to get the hang of it. My lords, reducing crime is key to achieving one of this government's guiding missions, to take back our streets. Violent crime in our country, particularly knife crime, is too high. Over the last decade, the most serious homicides involving knives have risen sharply, with young men most likely to be both perpetrators and victims. As set out in His Majesty's gracious speech, we will tackle this scourge on our society by bringing in a ban on ninja swords and other lethal blades used in attacks, and introducing strict sanctions on the executives of online companies who fail to comply with the law. To prevent young people from being drawn into gangs, we will strengthen the law on those who exploit children for criminal purposes and bring together services which support at-risk teenagers. My lords, antisocial behaviour also blights our communities. The police recorded 1 million incidents last year, and the Crime Survey estimates that more than a third of people in England and Wales have experienced or witnessed antisocial behaviour in some form. We will introduce new respect orders for adults who consistently offend and make it possible to fast-track public spaces protection orders so that it's quicker and more straightforward to clamp down on street drinking. My lords, shoplifting increased by 30% last year compared to the year before, and retail sector estimates put the figure up to 40 times higher than that. This not only puts additional strain on businesses already struggling in a difficult economic environment, it can also lead to assaults on staff who try to prevent thefts. No one comes to work to be assaulted. So to counter this, we will create a specific offence of assaulting a shop worker and introduce stronger measures to tackle low-level shoplifting. His Majesty's gracious speech also includes a range of proposals to rebuild neighbourhood policing, to get officers back on the beat, to deliver higher policing standards, and to improve vetting processes to ensure only the best candidates join the police's ranks. We will also ensure that police can respond robustly to domestic abuse, rape and other sexual offences, and strengthen the law to improve how the police respond to secure justice for victims of spiking. This will aid our mission to halve levels of violence against women and girls within a decade. My lords, continuing on that subject, let me now turn to victims and the courts. In recent years, justice in our country has too often been delayed, and in the worst cases, denied. This has proved particularly true of women and girls who are the victims of violence and abuse. As your lordships will know, lengthy delays for rape victims have become commonplace in recent years, which may cause additional harm to victims' mental health and well-being. We will deliver on our manifesto commitments to allow associate prosecutors to work on appropriate cases and roll out specialist rape courts. And we will work with the judiciary to fast-track rape cases to make sure the system can deliver swifter justice to victims of this terrible crime. We will also strengthen the powers of the Victims Commissioner to hold the system to account for how it delivers for victims, and make changes to require all offenders to attend their sentencing hearings. This will ensure their victims and bereaved families of deceased victims see justice being done, and perpetrators face the consequences of their actions just as the public would expect. My lords, let me now turn to another matter of great importance to the public: borders and immigration. Noble lords will be aware that the previous government's Rwanda scheme was not the deterrent to small boat crossings that it was intended to be. There have been no enforced relocations over the last 2 years, and just 4 volunteers have gone to Rwanda. In the same period, the Rwandan government has received £290 million of taxpayers' money. Most asylum seekers who have arrived by small boats are currently stuck in a backlog under the previous government's Illegal Migration Act. They are eligible for accommodation but have little prospect of being removed, with asylum hotels currently costing the taxpayer nearly £8 million every single day. This government is clear that we need a new approach. We will bring forward legislation to fix the broken asylum system, making it more efficient so that we can end hotel use through clearing the backlog of asylum cases. ensure individuals from safe countries are fast-tracked for return to their country of origin, and end the agreements with Rwanda to save over £100 million in future payments. We will redirect that money into the new Border Security Command, which will be given the tools to crack down on the criminal gangs at the root of this problem, including stronger powers to investigate organised immigration crime. And we will ensure there is a strong deterrent for those involved, including offences such as advertising migrant smuggling services and others relating to the supply of materials required by these gangs. My Lords, let me now turn to the Hillsborough disaster, the victims of which suffered an unimaginable tragedy. The devastating impact on the bereaved and survivors was compounded by deliberate attempts by those in power to hide the truth and to put their own reputations first. The former Right Reverend Prelate Bishop James Jones of Liverpool's report into what happened laid bare the horrendous experience of the Hillsborough families, brought about by an unacceptable defensive culture in too many areas of the public sector. The recent report by the inquiry into the infected blood scandal, which affected thousands of people in our country, highlighted similar failings. We will deliver on our manifesto commitment to implement a Hillsborough law, to place a legal duty of candour on public servants and authorities. This will be a catalyst for a changed culture in the public sector by improving transparency and accountability, helping to ensure that no other family has to endure the same ordeal. We will take action to improve assistance for bereaved persons and core participants at inquests and public inquiries to ensure families are able to fully participate. This includes delivering the government's manifesto commitment to provide legal aid for victims of disasters or state-related death. My Lords, I will now move on to another tragedy from which government, the emergency service and the events industry must learn important lessons. The country was horrified by the events at Manchester Arena 7 years ago, when 22 people lost their lives and countless more were injured as a result of a senseless terrorist attack. This government is determined to ensure such a tragedy never happens again. My Lords, that is why we will bring forward Martin's Law. This legislation is intended to strengthen the security of public premises and events. Our measures will require those responsible for certain premises and events to take steps to mitigate the impact of a terrorist attack and to reduce harm in the event of a terrorist attack occurring. The measures required will vary according to the capacity of the premises or event, ensuring the public is protected without placing unnecessary burdens on smaller businesses. In bringing forward this legislation, the government is deeply grateful to Fegan Murray, mother of Martin Hett, who was murdered in the Manchester Arena attack. Her campaigning has been crucial in driving forward this legislation and raising awareness about security measures at public events. Before I finish, I would like to mention arbitration, which I know will be of interest to your Lordships. I am, however, aware that there will be plenty in His Majesty's gracious speech that I have not mentioned and which your Lordships will be keen to discuss. I welcome the debate to follow, and I would like noble lords to know that my door is always open should they wish to discuss particular issues, either in this place or to meet up and do so elsewhere. Arbitration is a critical part of our legal landscape, enabling parties to resolve disputes privately and without the need for costly litigation. As your Lordships will be aware, the Arbitration Act of 1997 has long been seen as a gold standard across the world. However, almost 30 years later, it does require reform to bring it up to date, as highlighted by the Law Commission's helpful 2023 review. We're bringing forward changes to ensure the law in this area is able to adapt to a changing business landscape that support efficient and effective dispute resolution, continue to attract international legal business to the UK, and promote our economic growth. My Lordships, His Majesty's gracious speech set out the new government's approach for changing our country through the justice system, with less crime, fewer but better supported victims, stronger borders, and more security. It is a plan to set us on the path of national renewal, and I look forward to debating it with your Lordships in more detail over the coming weeks and months. Thank you.